Hi, my name is Bethany, and today I want to talk to you about the autism interest double standard. Also, very quick interruption to tell you that I'm wearing my hashtag actually autistic shirt. I guess I could probably maybe let that be available to you guys if you want to get your own. It's not a big deal if you don't. Now, this is by no means an official term, so a lot of times on my channel I will bring you some of my research on some things that I'm interested, some things that I think that would be interesting to you all to know about. But this particular thing, I'm coining this term for this video. It is not an official thing, it's just an observation that I've made that sometimes is kind of amusing to me. As we've already covered before on this channel, and as many people already know, many autistics tend to develop very specific interests, most commonly referred to as special interests, and those can often kind of invade every space of their life. The way they think or what they're thinking about, maybe the frame in which they are kind of viewing the world, and especially conversation. So I talked to someone who is the relative of an autistic person not too long ago, and they were expressing how they felt kind of bad because they just weren't super interested and they were getting kind of annoyed by the constant talking about the same thing over and over, especially at a time that was not exactly appropriate or convenient for them, but they didn't want them to ever feel that they weren't loved or cared about or interested in their, you know, interests and things like that. So I told them really to not worry so much because that autistic person probably has not been interested in a lot of what they had to say at the time that they had to say it. And they agreed. A lot of times the autistic person would be very blunt about their non-interest in particular subject matter and conversation. So this little story brings me to the concept of this perceived double standard. So autistics tend to be very, very interested in their interests and the things that they like, and like to be involved in them and like to express about them. They like to talk about them. Now, while shaming someone for being interested and liking things isn't fair or right, not everyone is interested in everything. A lot of times autistics simply do not understand why you care about the stupid things that you seem to care about so much, especially when they're like social things and small talk and weird, boring things that seem to have no real purpose. And a lot of times they aren't too afraid to tell you that they're not that interested. So why is it that autistics can sometimes seem very upset when you respond similarly about their interest? Well, I think this actually goes back to that whole theory of mind thing, where it's very hard for us to understand how you're thinking or what you're thinking in the moment. So we have a trouble understanding why you wouldn't absolutely love the thing that we're talking about and expressing about, because we love that thing, so why wouldn't you? And why could you possibly not care about the thing that I really care about right now? And we're taught to try to be kind and tactful about our disinterest in your stuff, so it seems really weird to us that you're allowed to not like our stuff. Except for, of course, we forget that sometimes we aren't so tactful, and that magical tactful way of telling us that you're not interested is probably not ever going to feel nice. It's not necessarily that we're being selfish or self-centered, it's just that we're having a hard time understanding things from your viewpoint as real time is going by, especially when we are talking about something very interesting and very cool to us. And it's like in our world, so we can't understand why you possibly couldn't care about that. Like, what's wrong with you? And you're very rude. Now, on the flip side, a lot of autistics are really good at letting you know when you're uninteresting. Now, this isn't the case for everyone. Those of us who are better or more invested in masking might not necessarily so openly express that we're bored or you're uninteresting. However, there are a lot of people on the spectrum who don't have a problem outright saying, I don't care about that, or that's boring, or that's stupid, etc. Not to be mean, just we're expressing how we feel about this situation. Others will just mentally check out thinking about something that's a lot more interesting than whatever you're droning on about. Or some of us just unceremoniously exit the conversation. In cases like these, I think it's important to remember that in every neurological situation, sometimes people are talking about boring things and sometimes they're talking about interesting things, in our opinion. Just like the autistic is typically subjected to social situations that just don't seem to make sense and having to go through your strange rituals of etiquette and all these social rules or whatever, the small talk and seemingly pointless and shallow conversation, the neurotypical might have to endure some ramblings on about some very specific or obscure interest or hear some random facts. The good news is sometimes there are those moments where you're both interested in the same thing and you can go on and on for who knows how long about that thing because both of you are interested and you can both bring different viewpoints and perceptions to that same exact topic that you both really like talking about and really like doing. Those are the best kinds. So for both sides, let's try to be kind, endure a little bit of the boring things, and if possible, actually get into that thing because life's a lot easier when the boring things become interesting. If you're determined to make something boring, it's gonna be boring. But if you try to give it a chance, try to get into it a little bit, maybe it can become interesting, and instead of it being some long drawn out thing that you have to endure every time you see particular people, it can be something that you guys can connect on a little bit. Even if that is simply not possible, try to endure a little bit to let that other person have some time being happy and expressing something that's fun and interesting to them. It's something that will help you in your relationships, friendships, etc. It's just a nice thing to do sometimes. However, I think that we should also be okay with eventually being able to exit that topic or conversation when it gets really long, drawn out, and boring, because you know what? We don't always have to be subjected to an obscene amount of being bored with people. It's just not worth it. So here's the deal. Allow people some leeway, but when it gets too much, let's try to exit in a tactful way. Now here's the thing. I don't personally know a non-offensive, tactful way to exit a boring conversation or change it into something else. So if you guys have tips or something like that, suggestions, let me know in the comments below, and I think perhaps some other people might be perusing those comments for that kind of advice, so kind of counting on you right now. And let's try not to be so offended or take it so personally when someone maybe isn't that interested in what we're talking about. That's okay. That doesn't mean that what we're interested in is bad or uninteresting in general. Just that particular person doesn't want to hear about it right now, and that's okay. Sometimes you find them boring and uninteresting too. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you have any advice on this particular topic and if you've experienced this phenomenon. Definitely out here just to point out some kind of funny things that the whole neurotypical dynamic can kind of produce sometimes. If you like hearing autism related content from me, you should probably go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I try to upload autism related content to this channel every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, if at all possible. I also have a Patreon, so if you ever feel like, for whatever reason, supporting me monetarily, you could do that if you really wanted to. I also will have this shirt, hopefully, available for purchase if you want to. Again, these things are no pressure. I just want to let you know that they exist. I hope that you're having a wonderful week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!